but I want to take y'all back where it all started for me.
Let me tell you about my city, a little town where I'm from, where everybody's southern raised, just as good as they come. Backwoods and mossy oak and mud holes, and back then we only gave what the farm grow. Man, I miss some days how we played on them dirt roads, and out of towners came with respect, cause they know we all close. Yeah, southern pride, towing gun folks. Welcome to my city, I-75 South, just north of Live Oak.
I'm from a city called Austin, Georgia, right on the border of Florida. I was raised on these dirt roads, mud tires, spin backwoods, running around this small town living, yeah. Now welcome to my city, title town, 229, turn it up so they can hear it loud. We get it up with big trucks and heavy G's, pretty girls with moonshine and whiskey.
It's nothing like our dirt roads, you can bet that, son. I'm from a city, by any means, we gon' protect our guns. I hang with the rednecks and geekies. We get up in big trucks in the backwoods like Indians and teepees. This the home of the mighty, mighty Vikings. Wildcats, blazing, title town license. Winners, pretty girls with country grammar. When I say about Austin, Georgia, I ain't talking about Atlanta. This a different type of city, where the woods are pretty, but get gritty. You hear me? What you know about that 229? You can find us on the Florida, Georgia line, where I reside.
I'm from a city called Austin, Georgia, right on the border of Florida. I was raised on these dirt roads, mud tires, spin backwoods, running around this small town living, yeah. Now welcome to my city, title town, 229, turn it up so they can hear it loud. We get it up with big trucks and heavy G's, pretty girls with moonshine and whiskey. Moonshine and whiskey.
Some folks really don't understand how important it is and never forget where you came from. You know, when I say Lowndes County, man, I mean Lowndes County.
I'm from a city called Austin, Georgia, right on the border of Florida. I was raised on these dirt roads, mud tires, spin backwoods, running around this small town living, yeah. Now welcome to my city, title town, 229, turn it up so they can hear it loud. We get it up with big trucks and heavy G's, pretty girls with moonshine and whiskey.
What's up, guys? It's Thursday night. You guys know what time it is, right? It's time for the Viking Nation Live. I am your host, Larry Godwin. I hope you guys have had an outstanding week. We're going to talk about a lot about Lowndes football tonight, and primarily we're going to be talking about this dang Camden game. You know, why do I characterize it that way? Because when you play Camden County, you just don't know what to expect. Now, let me describe to you what I'm talking about. We know what to expect. They're going to run the heck out of that wing tee, but we don't know how we're going to react to it. And that's, I guess, the beauty of the wing tee is it's not a glamorous offense. It's an effective offense if you're playing a team that doesn't see it very often. And so, we know a thing or two about the wing tee over here in Lowndes County. So we'll get into all that stuff tonight. So welcome to the Viking Nation Live. Hope you guys have had an outstanding week. So, hey, Kenneth Hurst, thank you so much for always watching the program, whether it's the pregame blitz or it's the Viking Nation Live, or, man, I appreciate you being such a loyal viewer. The rest of you out there, we've had an outstanding. Let me recharacterize that. We've had a good season. Now, it could be a great season, but so far we've had a good season, and we'll see how it turns out from here on out. But before I get into the rest of the content for tonight's show, let's go ahead and thank our sponsors, and that's the Pepsi Bottling Company. These guys have been the title sponsor all year long. Are you guys Coke fans or Pepsi fans? Before this season started and I signed up Pepsi as a title sponsor, I got to admit, I was a Coke guy. I was a Coke Zero. Sometimes I would mix Coke Zero and regular Coke if I wanted to get my feel of it. But as I started drinking more Pepsi and Diet Pepsi, Pepsi Zero, and Mountain Dew, I quickly turned into a Mountain Dew guy. I got to admit, I really like Mountain Dew Zero and this particular drink that you see on the screen, Mountain Dew Spark. Fantastic, fantastic drink. I still cannot find it in the Zero variety. I used to when it first came out, when Dixie had it stocked, but I don't see it on the shelves anymore. Maybe I'm overlooking it, but whatever the case might be, I hope that you are picking up plenty of Pepsi products, especially for the big game this weekend, not just against Lowndes versus Camden, but there's a big college game as well, and that's Georgia versus Tennessee. So maybe if we have some time left at the end of the show, I'll get your opinion on that. So thanks to Pepsi Bottling Company. We also want to thank our friend of the show, longtime Viking guy, and that's Tim Neesmith. Some of you guys know them. What am I talking about? Most of you guys know him, I think, as Stickman. So I don't care if this guy is 90 years old into the future, right? He will always be our Stickman. And he also has a company that he sponsors our program with, and that's called A Shade of Perfection. Does a fantastic job with custom shades and blinds. If you want to go ahead and get your home booked for the holidays, right? So Stick can get your custom window treatments in. You need to go ahead and give him a shout. I don't know what the deadline is to get your stuff done for the holidays, but it's got to be approaching pretty quickly. So if that's you, if you need that type of service, A Shade of Perfection. 229-251-3479. We also want to thank these two guys, Josh and Justin, at the Migraine and Spine Clinic of Valdosta. These guys are your certified headache medicine specialists. They treat a variety of migraine and back pain treatments. So thank you so much to Josh and Justin. We thank White Oak Investment, specifically Kyle Conger. He can be reached at 229-850-8848. Guys, if you need a sound financial guy, Kyle needs to be the guy. White Oak Investment. He also sponsors our White Oak Investment hotline as well as comment line. And if you would like to call to take part in tonight's show to get your opinion on the air, go ahead and give us a shout at 229-469-1205. We thank Matthew Godwin with Verizon Wireless on Perimeter Road. If you have the need for iPhones, Androids, accessories, small business accounts, let Matthew be your guy because he's certainly mine. Matthew Godwin, Verizon Wireless on Perimeter Road. We thank Steve Nichols with Freedom with Steve Nichols. This guy will get you fired up first thing in the morning, whether you're on the right side of the political spectrum, on the left side, in the middle. He will get you thinking, and that's really all we want out of a political show, right? His show can be viewed and heard Monday through Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. Thank you to Steve Nichols, Freedom with Steve Nichols. And finally, we thank the fine folks at Commercial Banking Company. Guys, these are your hometown bankers. I love it when they know you by name. You walk through the doors. They make you feel like you're part of the family. If you need a personal checking account, savings account, CDs, IRAs, auto loans, mortgage loans, or business loans, let Commercial Banking Company be your hometown bank. Thank you to all of our sponsors and many, many more, I'm sure, on the horizon. It's Thursday night. It's time for the Viking Nation Live. I am your host, LG. And, I appreciate some of you loyal guys and gals that are watching every single week. Ben Beam, he says he's a Pepsi guy. Also, Mountain Dew. Abby Pearson, good evening to you. She says, good evening, my fellow football fanatics. Ben, I like the way you think. UGA wins easily. Man, I'm hoping that's the case. So anyway, I think that Tennessee will jump out to a 7 to 10 point lead. And then Kirby and Will Muschamp will make the necessary adjustments. And then Georgia will come roaring back. And I think they win by 17 by the end of the game. So anyway, that's my prediction. Hey, before we get into the football talk, I want to not thank, but I want to congratulate these young ladies, and that's the Lowndes Softball team for their all region accolades, all region, Region 17A. Player of the Year. How about this? Madison Van Allen. Congratulations, Madison. First team all region. Madison, Abby Reichert, Camden Anders, and second team all region 17A. Dallas Brooks, Addison Waring, and Taylor Smith. Congratulations, ladies, for an outstanding year. And thank you so much to providing so much entertainment for our Lowndes softball fans this past year. So congratulations to all the Lowndes softball players, because listen, I know we talk a lot about Lowndes football on this show, but when you're talking about the Lowndes athletic program, these cats, I mean, these guys and girls really know how to get it done on the court, off the field, whether it's the tennis team, the golf team, softball, soccer, ROTC, football, whatever it is. The Lowndes athletic program is flying high. It's under new leadership this year. Danny Redshaw has taken over the reins as athletic director, and he is doing an outstanding job. So, Danny, we appreciate your support, not just for Lowndes Athletics, but this show as well. Thank you so much to all these Vikings. Let's get into the football talk. Last week, we had a must-win, right? Let's just be honest about it. It was an elimination game. Must win. Lowndes hosting the Richmond Hill Wildcats. Man, I'm so sick of playing Wildcats. We've had 3 sets of Wildcats in the region this year, right? Oh, Georgia Coach Trainer, thank you so much for reminding me about our newest program. That's the girls' flag football team. I did not realize, Georgia Coach Trainer says that the girls' flag football team is nationally ranked. I did not realize that. So I really need to start following the flag football team, see how they do. Maybe I don't even know who the coach is. Shame on me. So I'm going to find that out, reach out to them, try to get them on the show, start talking about the girls' flag football team. So thank you so much for bringing that up to my attention here. Jeff, let's see. What is Jeff asking here? Larry, have you heard anything about the ladies' flag football? The last game I heard about was a few weeks ago when they beat a team 30-0. Jeff, that's what I was just talking about. I don't know much about the flag football team. It just has, I guess, flown under my radar, and I got to admit, I haven't kept up with it. So, but I will. I will reach out I'll find out who the coach is and reach out. Check out this fine tumbler that I've got here. Anyway, so Jeff, I will find that out for you and try to get some more information on the show. Hopefully in time for next week to keep the scores on May Express. Yes. So let's talk about the game last week. It was nip and tuck there. I got to admit, for the first half, it was a very, very close first half, 7-3 going into halftime in a must-win game. I wonder how many people kind of tightened up at halftime when, it was senior night. Kudos, congratulations to all the seniors, whether you're on the band, cheerleading team, the football team, all the seniors that were being recognized on Friday night in the senior night game. Then the football action started, and Richmond Hill gets the ball, and they kick a field goal, go up 3-0, and then we add a score, and that was it. That was it for the first half. Man, oh man, I got to admit, I was a little bit nervous. But then we kind of broke it open and really went on a rampage with our scoring, right? So what I'm going to do is go over some of the stats. Let me pull these up real fast. So offensive plays, Lowndes had 59 offensive plays. I like this. Yards per play was at 5.8 yards per play. Now, one thing that I have been harping on for just about this entire season. Definitely started in region play, talking about it more and more. And that's these three areas that I've named, that I've spotlighted, that in order for Lowndes to not only do well in the region, but we've got to shore up these three areas to do well in the playoffs as well. Do y'all remember those? I kind of singled them out: penalties, passing yards, and third down conversions. Penalties, passing yards, and third down conversions. How do you think we did? See, some of you guys got a lot of comments. Travis Hart should have been a lot worse. Yeah, we did have some drops. We did have some drops. What I think I count what. Did we have 3 drops? I think Kivas had, which is very weird to me, because Kivas Thomas, number 7, he has been a magician at bringing down balls, especially deep balls, all year long, and uncharacteristically had 2 drops in this game. And, I don't think that's a trend. That's he's going to get that out of his system. Had a bad game, but he did have some pretty good catches in the game as well. And anyway, so we also had another drop. Actually had, I think, 2 other drops. So Wilbur Pelfrey, getting a little tongue-tied tonight, Wilbur, with your name. Wilbur Pelfrey says we had 5 drops. Very well could be. I lost count because we did have a number of drops. One was, I can't remember, was it a running back early in the game? The ball was slightly underthrown, not much, still should have been caught. It's thrown right there at the hip. The receiver had to turn around for it. Just went through his hands, right? Another one hit, I think, Kivas right in the hands. And normally he would have caught it, raced into the end zone for a touchdown. So those were uncharacteristic drops from a number of players that night. I don't know how these things happen when you just have a series of bad things happen. And it seems like the whole team gets in on it. Right. But we did recover. The offense was potent enough to put up a lot of points in the second half, pulled away, and won it 35-3. So here's my question for you guys. Do you think that I'm not sure how to ask this question. It's obvious that we are a second half team, right? I think we've kind of demonstrated that all year long. Can we afford to be a second half team against a team like Camden County? Now, is Camden a team that is quote unquote a world beater? No, but they are a very potent team. They are a sufficient team. I'm going to use that word because they will wear you out. They capitalize on your mistakes and they hog the ball and they keep you from doing anything. If you make a mistake on offense, they're going to make you pay with their offense because you don't know when you're going to get the ball back, right? So those 3 areas that I talked about in the Richmond Hill game, really all season long, remember, penalties, passing yards, third down conversions. So what did we do for penalty yards? We had 5 penalties at 45 yards. We got to cut that down. I mean, that's better. That's better. It's trending in the right direction. But still, 5 penalties for 45 yards. I think Zach Grage is one of the things that we praise him for is the team seems to be more disciplined. Well, one of those indications of a disciplined team are the penalty yards. So we had 5 penalties, 45 yards. We got to get that in. Against a team like Kent, especially on the offensive side of the ball, we can't get behind the sticks into a 1st and 15, 1st and 20 with holding pen because I don't think we have the explosive offense to overcome that kind of stuff. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, we cannot give Camden's offense cheap yards. We got to make sure they end up in 3rd and long situations all night long. Obviously, a wing T team, they hate 3rd and long. They would love to get you in a 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, even a 3rd and 4, right? That's their type of ball game. So against Richmond Hill, we were 5 penalties for 45 yards. How did we do in the passing game? Pretty good. Now, the completion percentage was down because we did have some drops, like we noted. So if we catch the balls that we normally catch in that game, the completion percentage goes way up. But with that said, we still had 150 yards of passing, which is, it's not 200, it's not 300, but for a Lowndes offense that has not been very productive in the passing game this season, 150 yards is light years ahead of what I expected them to do in this game. So if we can keep that kind of production going, up the completion percentage a little bit, we really need to get that around 60 to 65% to be considered a good passing team, right? So that's penalties, that's passing yards. And so what do you think we did for third down conversions? Third down conversions. Let me pull that up right here. So against Richmond Hill, we were 5 of 15. That's a 33% third down conversion rate. Now, that seems low to the average fan, right? That seems low. So we need to get that around 50, at least 55%, something like that. But I'll take it. Here's why. Because all the games leading up, we were much, much lower than this. Sometimes we found ourselves in 15, 18%. So to double our third down conversion rate, I'll take it. Against Camden, we're going to need to see that north of 50%. We really are. Why is that so important? Obviously, to extend drives, but it keeps that offense, the Camden offense, off the field because, like I said before, I'm going to reiterate this several times during tonight's show. If you do not convert on third down and we have to continually punt the ball to Camden, it could be 6 to 8 minutes before you get the ball back to have another shot. I heard Coach Grage on another show earlier this week was talking about this very thing, not third down conversions specifically, but he was talking about, in a typical game, you might have 12 to 14 possessions, but against a wing T team, especially a good one like Camden, that might go down to 6 to 8 possessions per game, maybe 10 if you're lucky. So it really puts a premium on our third down conversions to keep their offense off the field. And at the same time, it puts a big demand on our offense when we have the ball. When we have the ball, we need to be productive and score because it could be another 6 to 8 minutes before we get the ball back. I'm just stating the obvious. How do we know this? Because listen, Lowndes used to be a wing T team. How many years did we watch Randy McPherson run up and down the team and just wear teams out? By the third quarter, they were just sucking for air. Right. And that's when Lowndes would pull away when we mastered the wing T. Camden County is a master of the wing T, especially Jeff Herron. And so we got to get those guys off the field, put them in third and long situations. We do. Now let's see what some of you guys are saying. Camden will attempt to control the clock and tempo of the game. Absolutely, Sterling Hobbs. Yeah. That's what wing T teams do. Wesley McDade, Wesley's not sold on our team this year. It's obvious in reading some of the comments that he's made throughout the season. He's not sold on the team, the coaching staff, that kind of stuff. He's got a comment. Richmond Hill is 3-6. Lowndes eats these types of teams up. You're right. It was a game that Wesley, I think your point is it's a game that Lowndes should have won, and Lowndes did win. So you got to beat the teams that you're expected to beat, right? Now, our problem this year is we haven't beaten some of these teams that we weren't expected to beat, like Colquitt County and American Heritage. We're going to make a run in the playoffs. We're going to face some teams that we're not expected to beat, and we got to overcome it, obviously. You got to overcome it. Georgia coach trainer, yeah, that wing T is outdated. Let's see what Georgia coach trainer. That wing T team is outdated. If we want to be elite, we should dominate from start to finish. Valdos's defense was too aggressive and overran Camden play. You got a good point there. So I think Trainer is making this point that, when you're trying to defend a wing T team, you have to be very patient and play assignment football, right? I think that's what his point was. So, Trainer, you may have watched the Valdosta highlights against Camden. You may be exactly right. I'm not sure. So when you say they were too aggressive, I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that. Maybe they were overrunning the play, not filling their gaps, that kind of stuff. Now, I heard Grage this week in an interview say that, when we're defending against the wing T, we have to play assignment football, but he's looking for our players to do a little bit more than that. He said he's looking for them to play assignment football, but also to make a play. So I think the message to the defensive side of the ball this week is make a play. I don't know whether that means you try to strip the ball, you try to do something spectacular, that kind of stuff. So make a play. That's his message to the team this week. First and second down, key to hold them. Third and long, absolutely. Colmore, what's Cole saying over here? Lowndes does not need to go into the fourth quarter with a tight ball game against Camden because one big play could change. Well, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. So here's the thing about Camden and the wing T. We saw this. I think they did this against Valdosta, right? They will lull you into a sense of selling out. You feel like you got to sell out to stop the run. Obviously, their goal is to get 3-4 yards at a time, right? So you creep these safeties up with, whether you're playing two safeties or you creep these safeties up to stop the run, and then they pound you. And all of a sudden, they slip a tight end, one of those wing backs out, a wide receiver. So you got these safeties with their eyes in the backfield, and all of a sudden, a tight end or a receiver runs right by them. And all you need is a receiver with one step. And that wing T quarterback, he doesn't have to be a great passer. All he has to do is be a good, decent passer, throw the ball downfield, get plenty of air under it, and let the receiver, tight end, run underneath it. And a lot of times they will score that way because if you have, maybe that's what Trainer meant, if you have an overly aggressive defense, especially on the backside, the back end of that, the safeties, then you could get burned one or two times that night for either a long gain or a touchdown, right? How many times did we see Randy McPherson do that? Rufus Demand, longtime Colquitt fan, he says the best way to defend a wing T team is to put a pile of points on the board. Score. You got a point there, Rufus. You got a real good point. So when your offense has got the ball, I think your point is when your offense has got the ball, score. Every time you have the ball, score. Because one of the deficiencies, can we call it a weakness? One of the weaknesses of a wing T team is quote unquote not an explosive offense, right? They're a ball control team, milk the clock, 3 or 4 yards at a time. If you can get ahead of them, especially 2 scores, it's very difficult for a wing T team to come back from that. Very, very difficult. So, yeah, point noted. Point well taken, Rufus. Score every time you get the ball. Listen, it doesn't matter what team you play, whether it's a wing T team, an American Heritage, Valdosta, Colquitt County. If your offense scores every single time you get the ball, you're going to be very difficult to defeat, right? That's just common sense. Wilbur, yeah, he says he's putting his chips all in on Ashley Anders. He says it won't be Anders' first rodeo facing a wing T team. Yeah, Ashley Anders been around wing T football for a long time, defending against that. Yeah, the only difference is we got a new crop of athletes that are trying to defend against the wing T. A lot of them for the very first time, Wilbur. So, Ashley can get on these guys all he wants, teach these guys proper technique, but it's these athletes, they have to execute their assignments. So I think the best way you handle it is Rufus's suggestion, and that's score. Score. If you score, it takes care of everything, right? Yeah, Cole says that's how Valdosta got beat. They got beat by a big play. They got beat by a big play. No doubt. Let's see. Yeah, Cole says you may only get 6 possessions for the whole game. That's true. Listen, if you've got each quarter, obviously in high school, is 12 minutes long. And if you've got, did I just fix my hair on the camera? I think I just did. Subconscious switch. Oh my gosh, I'm getting that age, I guess. So if you got a 12-minute quarter, and Camden, their goal is to keep it 6 to 8 minutes. That's 2/3 of the quarter. They're keeping it. If your offense comes in and they are a 3 and out, or maybe they get a first down and have a couple of series, but they're quickly out, and then you kick the ball back to Camden and they keep it another 6 minutes. Now you're almost halfway through the second quarter, right? So that's why you say you may only get the ball 6 to 8 times. So it's paramount for our defense to get as many 3 and outs as possible. Alan Laws. What you got in that cup tonight? Listen, man, I don't want you guys spreading any rumors. Let me just go ahead and dispel all of that. I don't drink. I am not a drinker at all. So anyway, this is just good old ice water. That's it. Now, I will tell you guys a kind of a humor story. Now that you brought up adult Kool-Aid and insinuating there's something in that tumbler that's other than water. I've got I don't know why I share these stories with you guys, but here's the story. So when my wife and I, so we've been married 29 years. This past October 16th, right? So for I believe it was our 25th anniversary, we go out to a local nice restaurant in Valdosta, and neither one of us are drinkers. We're not. We don't drink it at all. So we don't know what we're doing. So we go into this restaurant, and I say to my wife, it's like, listen, 25 years we've been together. Let's just go ahead and let's celebrate, do something we don't normally do. We'll just order a nice glass of wine, right? And so I get the waiter to come over, and I say, can you bring us 2 glasses of the finest wine that you have? And sure enough, he didn't have a problem with that. So he brings the glasses of wine. And for my fellow Baptists, y'all forgive me. It was a 25th anniversary. We just ordered a couple of glasses of wine. So anyway, I didn't know what I was doing. He brings the wine over, and we both take a sip, and it was awful. It was awful. It was some type, I found out later, it was a red wine, and it was so dry and bit. Guys, honestly, it tasted like gasoline. It tasted like gas. I don't know how in the world you guys enjoy that, but I decided to give it another shot. So I took another sip. Tasted like gasoline again to me. So I told my wife, I said, this would probably be okay if it were sweeter. So instead of calling the waiter over and asking for a sweeter glass of wine and getting his recommendation, what do you think I did? I took a packet of Sweet and Low and dumped it into the fine glass of wine, stirred it up, took a sip, and now it tasted like sweet gasoline. It's like, holy moly, this is awful. And evidence that I have no idea what I'm doing when it comes to wine. So the waiter saw me do this. He saw the expression on my face. He started laughing. The entire restaurant heard him laugh. He was laughing that hard. So anyway, after he composes himself, right, comes over to our table, asked what the problem was. I told him, said, I don't know what I'm doing. He says, sir, that was obvious. But since you don't know what you're doing, you provided pretty good. This is what he said to me. You provided pretty good entertainment tonight. We're not going to charge you for those 2 glasses of wine. So he took the glasses of wine away. So anyway, that's my wine story. So now you guys know there's no wine in this glass, in this tumbler, or anything else that's stronger than Mountain Dew Zero. So anyway, I don't know. It looks like a Wesley McDay looks like a typical bourbon and Pepsi Max cup. Could be right. Could be right. So anyway, Travis Hart, you hit the nail on there, guys. There is no dispute this year that Valdosta's defense is really, really good, right? Even with that said, Travis Hart brings up a very good point. He says Camden proved against Valdosta they can hold the ball for 6 minutes. They can hold the ball for 6 minutes. Steven Sipes, I don't know what you're implying, Steven. Is this a sports show? Are you? No, I'm kidding. Yes, it is a sports show. It's Thursday night, and it's the Viking Nation Live, and this is all about Lowndes athletics, specifically Lowndes football during football season. Now, if you are, because we do stream on other channels, and one of the channels that we stream on, we have a redistribution agreement with Freedom with Steve Nichols, so he allows us to stream this show onto Steve's network, right? So some of you guys may be used to watching political stuff over on Freedom with Steve Nichols, that network, right? So no, we are a sports show on Tuesdays and Thursday nights. Man, John Taylor, I have no idea what you're talking about. Man, you guys are getting way out. You guys are getting a little too focused on this drinking stuff. You, Steve, and your other partner, after Steve had got out the Ecclesiastes, make a tightly knit cord. I love it. Try Carlo Rossi Sangria. Did I pronounce that right? Carlo Rossi Sangria. The best and inexpensive with a quarter spritzer of ginger ale. I will have to take your word for it. I have no idea. Lowndes colors are wine and white, thus the wine talk. Hey, there you go. There we go. Wine and white, crimson and white. I get it. So, all right, back to the serious football talk before we got on a 10-minute detour to talk about my drinking habits there. Listen, just an innocent tumbler of ice water. Sometimes I have coffee. So it depends on the mood. So it's all about Lowndes tonight. And sometimes it's all about Georgia. And sometimes it's both. So anyway, let's finish talking about Lowndes. Now, one of the things, obviously, penalties, passing yards, third down conversions. Now, obviously, Lowndes is known as a running team. Lowndes had almost 200 yards rushing against Richmond Hill. Now, that's a given. Lowndes still has to rush the ball very well against Camden. That's going to chew up clock on when we have the ball as well. But guys, I'm telling you, we have to complement that run game with a passing attack. If Lowndes can throw for 150 yards and rush for 200 yards, well, let me buy that. If Lowndes can rush for 150 yards and throw for 150 yards against Camden, we'll win this game. We will win this game. Now, if Lowndes rushes for 150 to 200 yards and the passing yards are 50 yards and less, we won't win this game. I'm just telling you. That's the way I see it. So we got to get our passing game going and consistently going as well. Claudia Mine, she says, go Dogs on Saturday afternoon at 3:30. Absolutely, Claudia. We'll talk about that. If we have some time at the end of the show, we'll talk about that a little bit because that is a huge game. I cannot believe Georgia was disrespected by the College Football Playoff Committee the way that they were this week. Georgia coach Trey, the team is currently eating at Old Times in Camden. Okay, that's good food. All right. So they're already over there. That makes sense. Okay, so can Tennessee and Georgia both lose? Colmore, leave us alone. This is Thursday night, bro. This is the Viking Nation Live. There's no sense in you um, trying to interlope our conversation tonight. I know that you're kind of sore for being a Florida Gator fan, and your Gators aren't doing well, and that's just the way it is. So Tennessee's already beat you guys this year, and you're hoping that, and Georgia's beat you, so you're hoping that both teams. I don't know what to tell you, man. Cole, listen, you're a young guy. It's not too late for you to repent. You can repent and start donning the colors, the red and black, right? You can become a Georgia fan as well. So anyway, now Wilbur, what do you mean? Isn't it ironic this game that the Wildcats are our biggest well, okay, I see what you mean. I see what you mean by that. Absolutely. They want us to knock off Camden County. Why is that? Valdosta, they are rooting for our Lowndes Vikings this week. So why is that? Because if we knock off Camden, we take the 3rd seed. Camden falls all the way to the 4th seed. And guess who has the 2nd seed and a home playoff game? That's the Valdosta Wildcats. We'll get into well, I guess we already did. That's the scenario that we want to happen. Now, what happens? I'm glad you brought that up. What happens if by chance Lowndes doesn't win? Yeah, by beating the Richmond Hill Wildcats last week, Lowndes has solidified a playoff spot. Now, if we go over there to Kingsland and we lose to Camden, then we take over the 4th seed. That ain't good. That ain't good. That's not what you want to do. Why is that? We'll get there in a second. Well, I guess we can go ahead and do that. Hold on one second. Let me pull this up real fast. Okay, here we go right here. All right. So I'm going to put this on the screen. Hopefully you guys can see this. Okay, let me go this route instead. Okay, so this is the 7A playoff bracket. Okay, the 7A playoff bracket. Now, I've gone ahead and filled out the entire bracket with the exception of the Region 1 teams. Well, let me take that back. 3 of the Region 1 teams. Colquitt has already taken the number 1 seed out of Region 1 7A, right? So Carrollton out of Region 2 is the number 1 team out of that region. Now, I've gone ahead and filled out the entire bracket. Does that mean that all these teams are going to be filled in? Like, for example, does it mean that Parkview is all, right there? Does it mean that Parkview is going to be the number 3 team out of Region 4? No, not necessarily, because for most of the teams, you see all these teams that I've filled in and they've got a little asterisk mark next to it. That means that those seeds haven't been determined yet. That's just my best guess looking at their remaining game, how I think it'll turn out. So we could have some upsets, and it could change the entire complexion of this 7A bracket. But this is just my best guess on how I think it'll turn out. So now, if you take a look at this particular, if you are the number 4 team out of Region 1, let's say for a second, let's just say for heaven's sake, let's just say that Lowndes loses to Camden and we are the number 4 seed. Now that means that Lowndes has to travel. And I know that's terrible. I can't live with that kind of handwriting. Are you kidding me? So let's say that Lowndes is the 4th seed. That means that we have to go on the road to Carrollton. Lowndes is not typically a very good road team. That's just been borne out throughout the years. I don't know why that is. It's just we just struggle. We just prefer to play at Martin Stadium. That's why that number 1 seed is so important. Number 2 seed is so important, but it is what it is, right? So we find ourselves as either the 3rd seed or the 4th seed. And if we are the 4th seed, we got to travel to Carrollton. And then look at the road that's ahead of us. Then we got to take on probably Parkview here. Right? And then look after that. And then we probably have to meet Buford here. And if that's not enough, if somehow we get by Buford, then we probably have to take on Colquitt there again. Whew. That's a tough road. That's a tough road. Now, what would it look like? Oops. What would it look like? Yeah, let me just make that smaller. There we go, right there. Okay, so what would it look like if that is Camden? And then we go all the way over here. And we are the number 3 team. Then we would have to travel up to Westlake. Now, pick your poison. Do you want to play Carrollton or do you want to play Westlake? Personally, I would rather play Westlake. That's just me. So let's say we take on Westlake. Now look at this schedule. So Marietta is a decent team this year, but they're not the Marietta that we played a few years ago in the state championship game. They're a beatable team. Okay. So then if you get past them, you probably are taking on Mill Creek. Mill Creek is a really good team this year, but they're a beatable team. And then if you happen to win there, you're probably playing Grayson in the semifinals. Either Grayson or Mill Creek will probably end up playing either Buford or Colquitt in the state championship game. That's the way I read this thing. But can you see that why now this game against Camden County? Oh my gosh. Guys, think about this. I know that we would prefer to be a number 1 seed or number 2 seed, but if you had to take your pick between a number 3 seed and a number 4 seed, according to the bracket that I just laid out, and again, if you're just now tuning into this bracketology, LG's bracketology, you got to all these asterisks that I have all the, again, this is just my projection. It could be another team that's, because we do have 1 week left in the regular season tomorrow night. And a lot of these regions have teams that are playing each other, like us against Camden. All these other regions have teams that are playing one another, and they're going to determine these final seedings. So this is how I think it'll turn out, but it couldn't be different. It could look different by next Thursday's show. Okay. But if it turns out this way, we definitely would rather be a 3 seed than a 4 seed. 3 seed than a 4 seed. Why? Sometimes you just have to get, so to win a state championship game, you got to have a good team. Sometimes it takes a little bit of luck. Let's be honest about it. Sometimes it does take a little bit of luck. And sometimes that luck could manifest itself in the form of a favorable bracket, right? So which quadrant would you rather be in? Obviously, I would rather be here. I would rather be Colquitt County. Look at Colquitt's path to the state championship game. Their first round game is probably going to be at McThart Stadium against Pebblebrook, right? Then they probably would take on Brookwood in the second round. Then they would probably take on Milton in third round. All those are, to me, easily winnable games for Colquitt County. That's all they have to do to get to the semifinal game. That is a very, very favorable bracket. So I would not be surprised at all to see Colquitt County in a semifinal game against Buford. Now, if you take a look at Buford, where does Buford, their road that they have to go through? Definitely going to beat Peachtree Ridge. Definitely going to beat Walton. Then they probably are going to face Carrollton in the quarterfinal. Buford is going to beat Carrollton. So now you're setting up a Colquitt County versus Buford matchup. Now, if the game is in Buford, because now you're talking about two number one teams, two number one seeded teams. You got a coin flip. If the game is in Buford, I like Buford. If the game is in Moultrie, I like Colquitt County out of that matchup. I really do. Because on paper, I think those two teams are very evenly matched. I really do. I know Buford's got all kinds of accolades and, they've got, they are loaded with D1, but we've seen Colquitt County up close and personal. If that's not a team loaded with D1s, I haven't seen it. Their offense is so explosive, I think they can exploit Buford's defense. And I think Colquitt County's defense. Now, if there is a weakness with Colquitt County against Buford, it's their defensive line, because most of the time, Colquitt will just drill you with their speed on the defensive line. But I think Buford's offensive line can negate their speed and basically be road grazers. It's going to be a fascinating matchup. Buford's offensive line against Colquitt County's front seven. I'm not sure who their defensive coordinator is. He's going to have to get creative that night. Can't stay in a base defense against Buford. I don't think he can do that. So, yeah, Rufus, it's going to be a coin flip for location. And so if that location turns out to be Buford, I'm going to pick Buford. If, Rufus, that location, that venue is McThart Stadium, I have to give the nod to Colquitt County, because Colquitt is a different team. I mean, they are a great team, whether they're on the road this year or not. But in McThart Stadium, they are a fantastic team this year. Great environment. And that's one of the teams that really, really get jazzed up by their venue, their crowd, if you will, right? So I really like that matchup, Colquitt versus Buford. So what got me talking about that tonight? Because obviously, if you're coming out of Region 1 7A, man, I really like this path for the number one seeded team. Now, does that mean that's impossible for the other ones? No, it's not. But the number one seed definitely is a favorable bracket this year versus the number 4 seed. Now, is it doable? Yeah. Obviously, any given Friday night, any team can win, right? But if you're the number 4 seed and you got to go through Carrollton, then you got to go through Parkview, then you got to go through Buford, that's a tall order. And then you got to go through Colquitt County again to get to the state champion. That is a very, very tall order. Can it be done? Yes. We're going to need to have some luck on our side to basically run that gauntlet. So if you can start out on one of these other brackets and allow some of these teams to start knocking each other off, then obviously that works in your favor. So that's why I like Lowndes here. I like our chances. If we can't be the number 1 seed, I like our chances as a 3rd seed. Now, just for giggles, what if Lowndes beats Camden and gets the number 3 seed, that would make Valdosta the number 2 seed. Take a look at their bracket. Man, this is a pretty good bracket for Valdosta as well, especially given their lack of offense. I like this side of the bracket because of their defense. If you had to put Valdosta against some of these other teams on the left-hand side of the bracket, then they're going to exit pretty early in the playoffs. But I like this lower right quadrant for Valdosta. Valdosta beats East Coweta, no question about it, because they're going to shut down East Coweta's offense, and Valdosta's got enough offense to beat East Coweta. Then they play Grayson. I think Valdosta beats Grayson. I really do. Grayson is just one of these teams that they're hard to read, but I think they're going to beat Grayson. Now, that would mean that Valdosta has to travel to Grayson, but Grayson is beatable. Grayson is not a Buford. We showed that. Right? Grayson is not a Carrollton. Grayson is not even a Milton or a Mill Creek. So I think Valdosta, it's a toss-up game. Really, it's a coin flip game. But I think it's winnable for Valdosta. And then if they get past Grayson, who else is standing in their way? They take on Grayson in the second round. So if you're Valdosta and you get past Grayson, who else is standing in your way? North Gwinnett? Lambert? No. They get past Grayson, you could very well see a Valdosta sitting there in the semifinals, right? So anyway, I know that's a lot to process. It really is. But I think I made a decent case. It's not a given, but it is a decent case that for Lowndes to have a pretty good shot at least making it to the third round, they got to beat Camden County Friday night. You beat Camden County, and it sets you up for success. Now, if you lose to Camden County and you find yourself as fourth seed, does that mean that you can't be successful? No, but it just becomes exponentially more difficult, right? Because in order to get to the third round, you got to go through Carrollton and Parkview, and then you meet Buford in the third round. All those teams are beatable, but I like our chances better if we can avoid them, if you know what I mean, right? So that's my game. Now, if all this plays out, this is the objective side of me. And I hope it doesn't play out this way, right? But this is, let me change that. This is who I think will be your Final Four. Now, there's a big caveat right here. If Lowndes can get that third seed, I think if they get hot right at the right time and peak right at the right time, I mean, some of you guys are going to laugh at me. Some of you Lowndes fans are going to laugh. Some of you non-Lowndes fans are going to laugh. You could very easily see it's a long shot. I know. But guys, I'm telling you right now, if they are the third seed, you can easily see Lowndes in the semifinals. Rufus is laughing. I knew you got it. So, Rufus, let me ask you a serious question. If Lowndes is here in the third seed, do you think I'm going to ask all you guys that. We'll go one by one in the last couple of minutes of this show. If Lowndes is the third seed, let me just erase this. Let's talk about a potential matchup, Lowndes versus Westlake. Who do you guys like? Wesley McDade says, no way, you're not drinking. Absolutely. I knew some of you guys would be laughing at me. A lot of you are probably laughing at me right now, right? So who do you like? Lowndes versus Westlake. Let's just go one by one. Yeah, I like Lowndes. I really do. Okay. Now, in the second round, let's assume for a second, I'm going to pencil in Marietta. Now, who do you like? Yeah, that's true. All these teams are going to be a tough out. Westlake is going to be a tough out. But if you're Lowndes, would you rather play Westlake? Would you rather play East Coweta? Or would you rather play Carrollton? Now, East Coweta is off the table because Lowndes can't be the number 2 seed, right? So out of the two, who would you rather play, Westlake or Carrollton? I would take my chances with Westlake. If that's the case, and Lowndes beats Westlake, who do you favor, Lowndes versus Marietta? We'll just take it one by one. I like Lowndes' chances. I really do. You can call me a homer. You can make fun of my drink if you want to. Jason Henderson says, that Mountain Dew Spark is strong tonight. Absolutely. Absolutely. Jason, I'm feeling kind of frisky, man. I was gas holing it earlier this week. Now I promise you, it's just ice water. And now I'm saying that Lowndes has a shot at going all the way to the semifinals, right? So, anyway, so who do you like, Lowndes versus Marietta? I like Lowndes. See, Rufus agrees with me, and he calls me Homer. I don't mind. I am a Homer, right? Lowndes could beat Marietta. So if that's the case, see, Mill Creek probably beats Denmark, right? Mill Creek probably beats North Cobb. Now, and then it turns out Lowndes versus Mill Creek. Rufus, probably 95% of the state would probably say that Mill Creek would probably run roughshod over Lowndes, because obviously we have to go to Mill Creek, right? They're going to be a number 2 seed. So after this will be the 3rd straight week on the road. Again, if you're Lowndes, who would you rather play in the quarterfinals? Would you rather play Grayson again on the road? Would you rather play Buford? Or would you rather play Milton if you happen to be a number 1 seed? Well, Milton's probably good. But out of those teams, I would rather play Mill Creek. Mill Creek's got a fine football team, no doubt about it. But I'm talking about if Lowndes were to get to the semifinal, what is the best path for it? Right? No, Travis Hart, I'm not sleeping on anybody. I'm just throwing out a potential scenario. This doesn't, just me talking about this bracketology, these brackets tonight, doesn't mean that I'm discounting one team over the other. I'm just giving you a scenario that could be favorable for Lowndes if all the stars are lined up just right. What could be the best path for Lowndes to take? I'm just painting out a scenario that this would be, out of all the scenarios that you could point out, this is probably the best path for Lowndes to take. Okay. So let's say that, for giggle's sake, let's say that Lowndes beats Mill Creek. So that's how you end up with Lowndes in the semifinals, right there. Now, just to continue with my unrealistic theme, according to many of you tonight, let's say that Lowndes has a rematch with Grayson in the semifinal game. I like our chances. Lowndes plays Grayson well, even on the road. I like our chances. What about that? What about that for a scenario? Woo! How about that? Playing Colquitt County on a neutral turf. Yeah, Rufus, it's going to be hard for Lowndes to beat all these teams. When you're talking about, especially after you get past the first round, all these teams are good. And let's be honest. The Lowndes offense has not shown any, I shouldn't say any. The Lowndes offense has not shown a consistency this year that you need. They haven't shown any evidence of gelling at the right time, peaking, whatever adjective that you want. Now, but if they get hot, if our Vikings get hot at the right time in the playoffs starting this Friday night, yeah, I'm counting this Friday night as a playoff game too. In order for this scenario to work out, I need Lowndes to beat Camden County this Friday night because I think this is going to be their best path. That's how I see it. So anyway, that's my scenario. Now, if Lowndes goes over to Kingsland tomorrow night and loses to Camden, and we start out as a 4th seed, all bets are off. We got to recalibrate, relook at this, and present another scenario. It's kind of like these. election strategists where they try to plot the best road or the best path forward out of all the different scenarios, the best path forward to victory, right? So given the situation that we find, because I'm never, ever going to be one of those guys that just sits back and says, oh, woe is me. Given the situation that I'm in, right? Because it is what it is. You find yourself 5-4, you're in the playoffs, you're fighting for your life for a number 3 seed. It is what it is, but given the current situation, how do I maximize my chance for success? And I think I just laid out at least a doable one, a reasonable path to success. So anyway, Wesley McDay, don't you dare say it. Don't say it. It's hard to beat a team twice in a season. Well, that's usually the general rule of thumb, right, Wesley? I mean, it is. It's very hard to beat a team twice. Can Colquitt beat us twice? Absolutely. Can we beat Colquitt twice in a season? Absolutely. This is high school football. Anything can happen. Greg Maddox says Colquitt will not beat Buford. A lot of people think that. Now, on the flip side, Greg, a lot of people do think Colquitt can beat Buford because Colquitt has a very, very good team this year. They do. There's a lot of athletes, not just athletes, but I've been surprised by how quickly their offense and defensive lines have gelled this year because they had to replace a number of offensive line like we did, and those guys have really, really excelled in their blocking schemes, in their blocking game. So, given the maturity of their trench, their offensive and defensive linemen, coupled with their stellar athlete, I got to give them a good shot. So probably the biggest question mark for Colquitt to make a serious run at a state title is really going to be their quarterback play because you got to have a guy that gets the ball consistently to Landon Thomas and Nye Carr and all these other super athletes they got, right? So if Buford or any other team can get pressure on Nico Fan, then it might be a different scenario. But anyway, I think I've laid out a reasonable case or a best case scenario for Lowndes to make a deep run. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out, right? Jason Anderson said, in his opinion, Buford wins it all. Very well could be. Could be Colquitt, could be Buford, it could be Grayson, or it could be Lowndes. Let's just end the show on that high note. Guys, you've been watching the Viking Nation live tonight. Don't ever, ever sleep on our Vikings. With that said, go Vikings. We'll see you all tomorrow night.